Hello, welcome to the SWN Watch. I am Chimla Chiki and I'm so glad you're watching this right now. On our radar today, we'll be looking at the vaccine mandate and why exactly is the world polarized on this matter. Let's take a look at the story that featured on CNN. The headline says that in an obituary we found the family says a mother's COVID-19 death could have been prevented if more people were vaccinated. The body of the story goes on to read that the day Candace and Terry Ayers got their second COVID-19 vaccination in early March was a day of hope and excitement for the entire family. And that's exactly how people feel when they get the jab. They feel protected, if not empowered, against the tyranny of COVID-19, allegedly engineered in Wuhan's Institute of Virology under the partnership of the United States National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, directed by Dr. Anthony Fauci. Meanwhile, the story goes on to read that Candace Ayers died nearly 6 months later following a July trip with her husband to Mississippi. Her death certificates she died of COVID-19. Candace Ayers' obituary reads that, and I quote, Candace K. Kruger Ayers, 66, of Springfield, passed away on September 3rd, 2021 at St. John's Hospital in Springfield, Illinois. She was preceded in death by more than 4,531,799 others infected with COVID-19. She was vaccinated but was infected by others who chose not to be vaccinated. The cost was a life, end of quote. Now you might be wondering why she still died after being vaccinated. There's a new word for that. It's called a vaccine breakthrough case. According to the information provided on cdc.gov, vaccine breakthrough cases are expected. COVID-19 vaccines are effective and a critical tool to bring the pandemic under control. However, no vaccine is 100% effective at preventing illness. Some fully vaccinated people will get sick and some will even be hospitalized or die from COVID-19. However, there is evidence that vaccination may make illness less severe for those who are vaccinated and still get sick. The risk of infection, hospitalization, and death are all much lower in vaccinated people compared to the unvaccinated. From this information, you know that the vaccine is not an almighty formula for this pandemic. It might work for some and not work for others. According to the United Kingdom's Office for National Statistics, and I quote, between 2nd January and 2nd July 2021 in England, there were 51,281 deaths involving coronavirus. 640 deaths occurred in people who were fully vaccinated, which includes the people who had been infected before they were vaccinated. However, there are also ethical concerns about the use of fetal cell lines in the testing and production of the COVID-19 vaccine. So let's listen to this resource from the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia.
Hi, my name is Paul Offit. I'm talking to you today from the Vaccine Education Center at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And one issue, and it tends to be a little contentious, is are fetal cells used to make vaccines? The answer is yes. There were two elective abortions that were performed in the early 1960s, one in Sweden, one in England. Those cells that were obtained from those elective abortions have been used to make several vaccines. They've been used to make the hepatitis A vaccine, the chickenpox vaccine, the rubella or German measles vaccines, one of the rabies vaccines. Though it's the same cells that were obtained in the early 1960s, so no new therapeutic or elective abortions have been performed since then for the purpose of making vaccines. But the answer to the question, is there residual or very small quantities of trace DNA from those original abortions in the vaccines that I just mentioned? The answer is yes. Now, the Catholic Church, through the Pontifical Academy of Life, have weighed in on this issue because obviously for the Catholic Church, abortion is a sin worthy of excommunication, a sin that causes one to lose, frankly, the ability to participate in the sacraments of the Church or Catholic life. So I think Catholics have reasonably asked the question, can we get these vaccines? And the Pontifical Academy of Life, at the time headed by Joseph Ratzinger, who became Pope Benedict XVI, has ruled that yes, it is okay to get. In fact, it's important to get these vaccines because vaccines save lives. Vaccines prevent suffering. Vaccines prevent hospitalization and occasionally death. And the Catholic Church, like any major religion, cares deeply about the health and
Well, in another resource from the Nebraska Medicine, Dr. James Lawler, an infectious disease expert and practicing Catholic, said that, and I quote, The COVID-19 vaccines do not contain any aborted fetal cells. However, fetal cell lines, that is, cells grown in a laboratory based on aborted fetal cells collected generations ago, were used in testing during research and development of the mRNA vaccines and during production of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. End of quote. Similarly, the Institute for Clinical Systems Improvement in a web post wrote that, quote, the mRNA COVID-19 vaccines do not contain any aborted fetal cells. Fetal cell lines are not the same as fetal tissues. Fetal cell lines are cells that grow in a laboratory. They descend from cells taken from elective abortions in the 1970s and 1980s. Those individual cells from the 1970s and 1980s have since multiplied into many new cells over the past 4 or 5 decades, creating fetal cell lines. Current fetal cell lines are thousands of generations removed from the original fetal tissue. Still quoting the ICSI's response to the question of are vaccines made with fetal cells? The group answers that for the Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna vaccines, no fetal cell lines were used to produce or manufacture the vaccines, and they are not inside the injection you receive from your doctor or nurse. Fetal cells may have been used to test the efficacy and proof of concept. Meanwhile, ICSI also says that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine did use fetal cell cultures, that is, a retinal cell line that was isolated from a terminated fetus in 1985 to produce and manufacture the vaccine. Still on this debate, Brother Oluwole, an assistant professor of medicine with the Vanderbilt Institute for Infection, Immunology and Inflammation, gave us a statement in response to the ethical use of fetal cell lines in the vaccine production. His words, and I quote, "The question regarding the use of human cells in research is controversial. Though cell biologists and virologists routinely use animal cells in research, there are many instances when human cells are preferred." Dr. Oluwole went on to say that human cells, including stem cells, are presently being used in research projects. There are many being sold everywhere in the world and are used for so many experiments. On this, he notes that there are many ethical and political questions and controversies related to the use of human cells, including stem cells, in research. He also adds that many say that there are no human stem cell lines in their production. That is often not the whole truth, as they may have used some human cells during the development and calibration. Still quoting some of the words that Dr. Oluwole gave to us in his statement, he told us that this is one of the cases where we would let the altar sanctify the animal. Listen.
No one is able to go back to the 70s to verify the source of the human cell lines that were immortalized, patented, and sold for all kinds of experiments, e.g., HEK 293. I believe this is one of the instances that we will let the altar sanctify the animal. In other words, the use of these cells is so common and widespread that I don't think it is a reasonable option to ban all vaccines that have had any form of contact with labs that have used human stem cells.
Still on this, he dishes out his empathy with every category of choices people make in respect to the COVID-19 vaccine. Listen.
I understand and empathize with the person who does not want to get any vaccine because the labs have used or have access to technology developed with the use of human stem cell. I also empathize with the person who does not mind the vaccine but would not want to receive the one where they are actively using human stem cells. I also empathize with the third group who trust the government and researchers and will receive any vaccine recommended.
Oluwole particularly stated that he understands the sentiment expressed by those who oppose the vaccine on the grounds for more data, and that of others who say that he cannot trust the government, and those who say that the church should mount resistance and not give in too easily to requests to relinquish our freedoms. In his very words, and I quote, "Though I sympathize with the later line of thought, the existing mRNA vaccines are only active for a brief period, hence the boosters. That said, there are other types of RNA that can actually change DNA. To the best of my knowledge, none of those are being used in human research." And meanwhile, several individuals and groups are working hard to sensitize the public on why they should be vaccinated. One research authored by Richard K. Zimmerman says that, quote, many persons with religious convictions report hesitancy about COVID-19 vaccine. A Pew research conducted in February 2021 found that 36% of Protestants and 22% of Catholics are willing to be vaccinated. Subgroup analysis found that 45% of white evangelicals and 33% of black Protestants are unwilling. Many reasons underlie this hesitancy. One area of reported concern is that receiving such vaccines implicates the recipient with cooperation with abortion. What's your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments. And if you're just joining us now, this is SWBN News Watch, and I am Shimura Chiki. We've been looking at the vaccine mandate and why the world is polarized on this matter. There are concerns about aborted fetal cells used in the production of the vaccines. But beyond that, there is also a major concern about government overreach. People are protesting government control. In a news story that featured on the New York Times, one Deborah Conrad, a physician assistant in Western New York, and Simon Leslie, a switchboard operator in Queens, decided to lose their jobs rather than get forced into taking the vaccine. They both worked long, risky hours during the pandemic and actually see the response of the government to the vaccine mandate as a betrayal. Ms. Leslie said that her employer rejected a request for medical exemption, while Ms. Conrad referenced vaccine side effects she claimed to have seen, but that veered from the scientific consensus. Meanwhile, they see their work as a badge of credibility and the order from their bosses and the state to make a choice between getting vaccinated or getting fired as a betrayal. Apart from that, there are others who are daring to respect people's human rights despite popular opinion. One of such persons is Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro, who told the United Nations General Assembly that his government was against health passport, but backed drives to vaccinate against COVID-19. What?
Already been fully inoculated for COVID. By November this year, all citizens who have chosen to be vaccinated in Brazil will be duly covered. We support vaccination efforts. However, my administration has not supported a vaccine or health passport or any other vaccine-related obligation. Since the pandemic started, we have supported doctors' professional autonomy in the quest for early treatment measures, in line with recommendations issued by the Brazilian Federal Council of Medicine. I myself underwent early treatment for COVID. We, of course, respect the professional doctor-patient relations as regards decisions on the proper medication to be used and also the potential for off-label use. We cannot understand why many countries, together with a large portion of the media, took a stance against early treatment measures. History and science will certainly be wise enough to hold everyone accountable.
It's also worthy to note that Bolsonaro defied guidance to only attend the assembly if vaccinated. News reports holds that Bolsonaro chose to eat a slice of pizza outdoors rather than dine with other heads of state since he was not vaccinated. The AFP said he did not meet New York's vaccine mandate for many indoor activities, including eating. At this point, let's hear what Brother Francis Bisong told the Christian community during a Sunday service. What?
Do you have an understanding of the times and the seasons that you are in? Do you know, is the church aware what she should be doing? Or is the global church confused about what's happening? Oh, what happens? Okay, there is a global vaccine mandate. It's coming. Everybody is mandated. What shall we do? If it comes to a national mandate in Nigeria, if they say you cannot report back to your job without a vaccine, what shall you do? There are scenarios that will play out that will put the people of God in utter confusion as sheep without shepherd, but they must be guided. You must know. I don't even think there is a general counsel and guide for the whole church to respond to a certain way. There could be certain members of the church the Lord will allow to take whatever they want to give them. It depends on their level of faith and their capacity to handle certain things. There could be others who must say no to the very end, and for a purpose. But this global thing coming around the world must be resisted. It must collapse. It is the game plan of Lucifer to control the whole world. They control you in this. You think it is just a matter of public health. You are mistaken. Eventually, they will control you in the matters of your faith.
In a similar note, Brother Willie Ucheya told SWBN News Watch that there is nothing wrong with vaccines and that believers should prayerfully exercise their right to decide whether or not they would have the vaccine. Listen.
First of all, there is nothing wrong with vaccines as a means of controlling spread of diseases. God gave the knowledge and wisdom to scientists. Medical science is primarily from God. Immunizations are part of the public health protocols. There is therefore nothing wrong with the research to get vaccines to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic. However, the current issue with the COVID-19 vaccines, viewing it from a prophetic insight from the Lord, is a good thing which is being used for bad intention. There is an agenda of the devil revealed by the Spirit, to take hold of the world, control the world via one world government through economy, health etc. He is using human beings, world influential governments, using scientists, many who are not even aware. It is well known now that the coronavirus was man-made and a few people want to 1. Make money through the vaccines and 2. To control the world by creating this mandate that the nation's government who subscribe to it will use the instrument of government to force their citizens to take the vaccines and deprive all who refuse, the freedom to do things that are legitimately theirs to do. Some of us who seem to be skeptical about the vaccination program, are not against the vaccines per se, but against the mandate that everyone must take it or be isolated. Taking away people's God-given liberty is demonically motivated. I will not ask anyone to take or not to take the vaccines. Rather I will advise brethren to pray and feel their spirit and depending on their peculiar health situation, prayerfully take a decision as they are fully persuaded. In a situation where in your workplace they make it mandatory as a condition to retain your job, if you have no option and you feel a rest in your mind to take the vaccine you cannot be condemned by anybody. All I advise is that you pray over the exercise before taking it so that whatever sinister thing in it shall have no effect. We have prayed and are praying for the church. Even if there is a deadly intention in the vaccine composition to affect health adversely, it shall not happen. The Word of God and the blood of Yeshua covers us. There are quite some details that would make you see sense in this truth but cannot be discussed in this medium. There are so many programs being embarked upon by world leaders that on the surface look harmless and laudable, but most of them are just smokescreen. Christians, especially those of the emergent church, should not reason like the rest of the world. That's what Paul was saying in Romans 12 verse 1-3. The mark of the beast is not necessarily a physical mark.
Apart from side effects from the COVID-19 vaccine, the ethical considerations and the lack of sufficient data, people are also resisting the vaccine mandate simply because they want the freedom of choice to be respected. In a nutshell, Dr. Oluwole says that if a believer wants to skip the J&J and take one of the others, that is one of the other vaccines, that will be fine. If also they elect to skip altogether, there is a risk of getting sick from the virus. However, we cannot underplay the importance of staying watchful and vigilant in these last days. We should be sensitive to the things happening around. There are many concerns that the vaccine is the mark of the beast. The truth is, the vaccine in itself is not the mark of the beast. The mark of the beast is a system of man that raises itself against the Lord and His Christ. It is the Antichrist system, a culture, a thought pattern, an idea, a way of life that raises itself against the Lord and His Christ. That being said, we encourage you to stay prayerful and watchful. Recall that Romans 8 verse 14 says that for as many as are led by the Spirit of God, they are the sons of God. So on this issue of the vaccine mandate, that is whether to get vaccinated or not, let the Lord be your guide. So dear viewer, this is where we wrap up for this edition of the SWBN News Watch. I am Chinua Chike. Thanks for watching.